Hello, my name is Lindsay Reynolds and I am the Riparian and Wetland AIM lead with the Bureau of Land Management National Operations Center. The following presentation will cover an introduction to the Bureau of Land Management, or BLM, and an introduction to the BLM's Assessment, Inventory, and Monitoring, or AIM program. What is the BLM? The BLM is a federal government agency that operates as part of the Department of the Interior and manages natural resources across 245 million acres of surface land in the U.S. Our mission is to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of the public lands for the use and enjoyment of present and future generations. The BLM was formed in 1946 by President Harry Truman when he combined the General Land Office and the U.S. Grazing Service, two agencies that have played an important role in the western U.S. The BLM manages more land than any other agency, approximately 1 in every 10 acres of land in the United States, all of which belongs to the American public. There are BLM managed lands and/or minerals in every state, although surface lands are more prevalent in the 11 western states and Alaska. Here's a map of federal lands in the western U.S. and Alaska. BLM managed public lands are shown here in yellow. The map is a little deceiving because of how small Alaska is portrayed. Alaska is not to scale here. The BLM manages 70 million acres in Alaska alone. But you can see that BLM land comprises a large portion of federal lands in the western U.S. and Alaska. BLM managed lands have a variety of resources and uses, including wild horses and burros, vegetation, grazing, wildlife habitat, energy, minerals, recreation, and cultural resources. With so many diverse resources and a multiple use mission, the BLM has many different interests to consider and manage. BLM has several spatial scales at which it operates that are important to understand. The highest level of organization is the headquarters office, which is partially based in Washington, D.C., as well as offices in central western cities like Denver, Grand Junction, and Reno. The headquarters office guides policy and budget decisions for the agency and operates agency-wide at a national scale. The other office that operates at a national scale is the National Operations Center, which provides national-level technical science support, IT and large database services, and human resources for the agency, among other things. The next level down are state offices. Then inside the states are district offices, and the smallest management unit is the field office. Visually speaking, we can see the BLM management units on this map. First, we have the state level shown here with black outlines. Some states are combined to be managed together, such as Montana, South Dakota, and North Dakota. Inside of each state are districts, shown here as red lines inside of each state. Then inside of each district are field offices, which are shown here as blue lines inside of each district. A field office is both a land area and a physical building, which can be a little confusing. But when BLM staff are talking about a field office as a land management unit, they are talking about the BLM managed land area inside of these blue lines, similar to a National Forest unit for the Forest Service or a National Park unit for the National Park Service. Inside of each management unit, the states, districts, and field offices have corresponding office buildings shown here with dots. Okay, let's get back to the history of BLM and how we manage land. A really important piece of legislation for BLM was passed by Congress in 1976 called the Federal Land Policy and Management Act, aka FLPMA. The purpose of FLPMA is to guide federal land managers' decisions. FLPMA dictates that BLM manage public lands for multiple uses and to sustain the health and productivity of the land into the future. FLPMA mandates that this is done through a periodic and systematic inventory, or monitoring, coupled with a land use planning process that dictates prevention of undue and unnecessary degradation of public lands. Since FLPMA dictated that we do periodic and systematic inventory of our lands, That brings us to AIM. What is AIM? Assessment, Inventory, and Monitoring. The AIM strategy was created in response to a review of the BLM's monitoring budget by the Office of Management and Budget in 2004. OMB found that while the BLM had been monitoring at the project level, it was unable to report on the status of BLM public lands nationally. While the BLM has historically produced valid data at the local level, it was not possible to combine these data to analyze the status of BLM at larger scales. By 2011, the agency had developed the AIM strategy with implementation beginning in Nevada. Using a standardized approach allows the agency to understand what is happening on the landscape at multiple scales, both for local applications and to report on the condition of lands at a national scale. The objective of the AIM strategy is to provide a standardized approach for measuring natural resource condition and trend on BLM public lands. It provides quantitative data and tools to guide and justify policy actions, land uses, and adaptive management decisions. AIM data are used for land management decisions at multiple scales. From the smallest scale, restoration treatment effectiveness, to mid-scale applications such as grazing permit renewals, to the largest scales such as reporting on national condition of rangelands. Collecting the data the same way across multiple spatial scales allows the data to be collected once and used many times. This makes the data collector one of our most important assets in this program because so much is dependent on consistent and accurate data. Now that we've talked a bit about what AIM is broadly and the history of AIM, let's delve into the 5 principles of AIM. The AIM program was built off these 5 principles, which are applied to all protocols under the program umbrella. We will go into each principle and how they apply to the program. Structured implementation, standardized field measurements, appropriate sample designs, data management and stewardship, and integration with remote sensing. The first principle, structured implementation, means that the AIM program provides a foundation on which practitioners can base their local and state monitoring programs. The National AIM team provides timelines and guidance on how to implement monitoring and how to achieve monitoring goals. The national team also supports training data collectors, you all, to provide quality data to state monitoring efforts. Once data are collected, they go to the national level to be stored in a national database and used for analysis purposes at multiple scales of inference. The second principle, standardized field measurements, allows data to be compared across the BLM and in collaboration with BLM partners. AIM developed its standardized field measurements to be quantitative and consistent with other national monitoring programs. They can be calibrated across data collectors to minimize observer bias and can be applied across ecosystems. The third principle is to apply appropriate sample designs to minimize bias and maximize inference. A sample design is essentially where the plots will occur across the landscape. The National AIM team supports development of sample designs along with the BLM field offices. Field offices communicate where they need information in their area of expertise, and the sample designs are generated to minimize bias and maximize what you can learn from the collected data. Those points are then given to the crews who visit those points and establish or revisit sampling plots. The fourth principle is data management and stewardship to ensure quality data, accessibility, and use. Historically, data were kept on paper datasheets in a filing cabinet or box. This created accessibility and consistency problems, which led to little to no data use. If something happened to those paper datasheets, then all the data were lost forever. Another scenario was data were being kept as documents on a single computer where few people can access it. The AIM strategy ingests all the AIM data into a national database where it is protected from loss and provides access to more people. The fifth principle is that AIM is integrated with remote sensing. There isn't enough time or resources to visit every single point on the landscape. To help understand what is happening across the landscape, it's helpful to rely on remote sensing tools and models created to gain inference across large areas. AIM data are integrated with remote sensing to create products such as bird's eye view of vegetation cover, landscape trend analyses, habitat mapping, treatment effectiveness modeling, and remapping of nationwide landscape data sets. AIM includes 3 different programs that collect data on 3 different resource types. Terrestrial resources, which include rangelands, grasslands, and upland ecosystems. Lotic resources, which include stream and river ecosystems. And riparian and wetland resources, which covers riparian and wetland ecosystems. AIM was launched with the Terrestrial program in 2011, and as of this year, 2022, we have over 41,000 terrestrial data plots, over 3,000 lotic plots, and nearly 350 riparian and wetland plots. This has been accomplished through implementation at the national, state, and field office levels, and most importantly, by AIM data collectors like those of you taking this training. It is critical that our field crews collect quality, standard data that is consistent and comparable across projects. Like those that have come before you, your data will be reviewed by the AIM quality assurance and quality control process, of which you are a part, and then ingested into a national database where land managers and researchers alike will be able to use it with confidence. Here is an example of AIM data in action. Data were collected on terrestrial AIM plots across the Vail field office in Oregon, shown by the red outline. The sample design was focused on BLM land and priority habitat management areas for sage-grouse after a large fire in the area. If you look in the lower left, the data are showing that only 39% of the plots are meeting the sagebrush cover objective, which is 15% cover, and 60% of the plots are not meeting the objective or have less than 15% sagebrush cover. The managers and research specialists are then able to take this information and adjust management to work towards improving sage-grouse habitat across the field office. What is the role of the AIM data collector? To provide quality data, of course. Data collectors will be proficient in the field methods, understand how to implement a sample design to minimize bias, and how to manage data to ensure data quality. Again, AIM includes 3 resources: terrestrial, lotic, and riparian and wetland AIM. Terrestrial and lotic AIM are the older, more established resources. Terrestrial began piloting data collection in 2011 and lotic in 2012. The newest of the resources is riparian and wetland AIM. Riparian and wetland AIM was launched to address management questions about the systems where land and water meet. Riparian and wetland AIM is designed for monitoring systems like wet meadows, marshes, seeps and springs, fens and bogs, vegetated drainageways, oxbows, beaver complexes, floodplains, and the margins of lakes, ponds, and reservoirs. The next presentation in this training series will discuss riparian and wetland AIM in detail. This concludes the introduction to BLM and AIM. Thank you for listening.